damage is almost enough, but Unforgiven's turn to turn it around. They're looking for Ryu, but they can't get it. Miracle gonna get his face crit off. He's not careful. Ryu gets himself a triple. There's the Quadra. Stayos just goes down 0-1. They know on a killing spree. Nafine 2. Wall doesn't connect to the grid. He goes in again. It's a great pull, but it's just not enough. Forgiven takes out Smurf. There's the ace for H2K. H2K demolish ANX for their semi-final match versus Samsung Galaxy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Worlds Tonight. I'm Sjokz supporter, joined here by Martin Deficio Lunge and Sam Kobe Hartman Kensler. As we're going to wrap up the quarterfinals, it is also our very last show from Chicago. Sadly, it's been a great run. Yeah, it's been a great run. Today we saw H2K versus Albus Nox Luna not delivering 5 games. It was a rather comfortable 3-0, I should say, for H2K. We're going to take a look at that. And they didn't seem to have all that much trouble with the Albus Nox team.
No, I mean, I kind of felt like if H2K maybe lost the first game, things could have gone downhill. But when this happened already, like, what, 3-4 minutes into the game, they got a double kill top on Jace. It was kind of just snowballed from there, and I think H2K felt really good in every single game they played.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be good for their confidence moving forward, but facing Samsung is going to be a completely different animal. So I'm very curious because a couple of the games, you know, later on in the game, they started to get a little lax with their play and skip steps, as they were saying, on the desk. And I'm curious to see if that does continue or if that's just, you know, a factor because they were so far ahead.
Yeah, it does raise up maybe some question marks because in the first week of group stage we thought, ooh, sometimes they don't seem to know what to do late game. Do you think they have improved on that front, Deficio?
I think they've gotten better late game. I don't think they're perfect. That's kind of the main thing. I mean, we can go all the way back to EU LCS and we've solved the same problems, you know. Get a good early advantage, get around Baron, and then they would like throw it Baron almost and actually lose some of these games. Did it a little bit at Worlds. I think it has gotten better. But a lot of it just comes down to communication in these very hectic moments where we still know they're a team who are very loud, you know, a lot of people are yelling and calling things at the same time. So when suddenly, you know, a guy shows up and he can potentially steal the Baron, they don't always have clear communication. And that is an issue, and it will be an issue versus Samsung. And it will put them in a bit of a disadvantage and kind of force them to really win the early game.
Yeah, the main thing for me with them is that they don't really respect enemy vision later in the game. And that's not really a problem if they're so far ahead, right? Because the enemy's not going to have a lot of vision, maybe a few defensive wards. But if they don't, you know, have that scenario, then we've seen in the group stages there are a couple times where, you know, they go on enemy wards, try and sit in a bush and do a risky play, and it backfires.
I do think, though, this matchup specifically, like once they got these massive leads and started winning like game 1, game 2 as well, like knowing H2K and knowing European teams, they do again lose a little bit of focus and they do fool around just a little bit and they go very aggressive, like just let's keep going for kills, let's keep playing aggro, ignore the ward here, let's buy more damage. And that's something that they have done in the past because they have like a 10,000 gold lead. I don't know if it will be the same against Samsung. Semi-final, an opponent that is super, super hard to play against. If you get an early advantage, I think you keep the focus to try and close the game. And I don't think even if with 10k advantage, you start like jumping around and going for kills in every lane.
Yeah, as said, we are just guessing. Of course, we don't know if they just felt comfortable in this matchup. But as said, let's take a look at the bracket and how it is played out now. As said, H2K up versus Samsung Galaxy and SKT up versus the Rocks Tigers. First, let's wrap up Samsung Galaxy versus H2K. Do you give them... How much of a chance do you give them? Let's start with... our Kobe from NA.
I give them more of a chance than I gave Cloud9. They've definitely been looking better than
You're
Cloud9.
so kind.
Oh,
wow, thank you.
But honestly, yeah, I still have it favored to Samsung. Maybe I'd give them like 25%, honestly, for H2K in that matchup.
Yeah,
that's my first ballpark number.
I was gonna go like 70-30 in favor of Samsung as well. I think Samsung can match H2K in the early game, like just individual players. And then I think Samsung just late game is just much better, you know, both calling and team fighting. So it's one of these games where if H2K can actually really dominate the early game, if they have good picks, good counter picks, and if some of the players, like let's say Odo Amna actually shows up and beats QV up in the top lane, that gives a big advantage to H2K. But I need to see that happen before I actually want to like believe it.
Definitely true. I'm also really excited for the pick bans for that matchup, actually, because I feel like those have some players that are a little bit smaller champion pools than, say, SKT versus Rocks, which will be very deep.
Let's quickly touch on SKT versus Rocks then. How do we think that's going to go? Does Rocks have a chance here to finally beat out SKT on the world stage, Deficio?
Yes, they do have a chance. I find it really funny how people are like, oh, Rocks are massive underdogs now. You know, they came in as the best team in the world.
You said they were massive underdogs.
No, but at least they're not underdogs. They're not underdogs in this matchup, in my opinion. They are against the world champions, and SKT did look very good in their quarterfinal, but so did Rocks in their quarterfinal as well. I think this is actually a very even matchup that comes down to like the preparation coming into it, and then like can Peanut show up when it really, really matters? Because last time we played against Blank in an important best of 5 it was spring final, and Blank actually out-jungled him. Peanut needs to be like a boss, and then they win.
And then my question on the other side for SKT is going to be, you know, is Duke going to have a couple of games where, you know, he gets completely solo killed up in the top lane? His teleports still seemed a bit off in some of the games. He did recover very quickly as they moved further on in the series, but against the Tigers, can you afford to drop a game like that purely off of, you know, one lane?
Yeah, well, all our questions will be answered next week, and we are going to talk a little bit more about those semifinals in just a minute. But if you are watching in client, check out youtube.com/LOL Esports for the full version of Worlds Tonight. All right, and now we have all the time in the world, or at least some of it, to talk about.
They're packing up already.
They are packing up.
I don't know about all the
5 minutes, let's go.
Okay, they are packing up because we are heading to Madison Square Garden, where we'll see a bunch of, or 4 amazing teams crossing swords. I do want to have one last honorable mention for Albus Nox Luna, obviously, because I feel like it's kind of a false note for them that it was a 3-0 here, but they've shown amazing things, so I think they deserve a shout out.
Definitely one of the more exciting teams to follow here this year at Worlds, and they've gained a ton of fans as well, as you could hear in the audience.
Yeah, definitely. But H2K, they had to do it, and they did in a quick 3-0. Deficio, you mentioned as well, if Oduwamne goes off in that semifinal versus Samsung, that could be a possibility for an in. What other possibilities do you see? Jankos in the early game, for instance?
Yeah, again, I think every single player on H2K is actually performing above expectations on an individual level. I think Rio has had his best tournament in years. Like, we have to go all the way back to like season 3 to find a Rio playing like this. I think Forgiven and Vanda as well, especially when they get something like Caitlyn, have been doing really well in laning phase. So
probably won't.
Probably won't get it, sadly. And that is actually a big blow to H2K because it is such a key pick in the early game. But I think for H2K, like, it literally comes down to one, how can they draft? Like, can they actually get some counter picks in laning phase? And 2, can they fix the late game around Baron? Can they close out games? Because I think they can get an early game advantage. I'm not saying every game, but some of the games. And if you can only get it to 20 minutes and then you start losing because of poor decisions, it doesn't matter then.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm very curious to see how they'll play if there's a game where they don't have, you know, winning lanes off the bat. And Jankos doesn't have all these pushing lanes to work with because Ambition has actually been quite good. There are games in the group stages where he made a few mistakes early on, but he has really stepped up as the tournament has progressed. And I'm very curious to see how they'll interact.
And also, I mean, we need to look at the bracket. These two teams, I think it's fair to say, have the easiest quarterfinal opponents in ANX and Cloud9, and obviously both teams won 3-0 fairly easily. So going into this one, it's kind of hard to go like, it's hard to overhype one team and underrate the other one just based on who they were playing, because I don't think there was that big of a difference in opponents. Where on the other side, you know, they beat out the 2 Chinese teams. SKT and Rocks were heavy favorites coming into this tournament as well, like to beat top teams. So it's much easier to go like, wow, this is going to be like insanely high level. Both teams will perform. We don't really know with Samsung and H2K in such an important game. Yeah,
and let's hope so, because most of it, all of the quarterfinals have been pretty straightforward wins for the team that ended up winning. Oduwamne is, by the way, there behind us doing an interview right now. This man has stepped up. Deficio, is it safe to say, or is it fair to say that the individual players on H2K have just looked a lot better than they have all year in EU? And why do you think that is?
I think it's 100% fair to say. Actually, from talking to the players, they also say, you know, they're just playing at a different level. I think it comes down to, one, some of the practice in boot camp where you play both Korean solo queue and against much better opponents.
Yeah.
I think also it comes down to the meta change. This is much more about, you know, the standard laning phase. It's about having like these very strong laning picks, which obviously favors a guy like Forgiven, favors a guy like Jankos, who loves to play early game. So I think just the meta fits H2K, and the practice they've gotten for the last many weeks is really important. And the team kind of clicks a bit more than they've done in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my biggest surprises has actually been Ryu's play because, during the year I was like, okay, he's pretty good, but not super impressive. And one of the stats that I've been having a lot of fun tracking is this like time spent across the halfway point basically of the map before 15 minutes. So basically laners that are playing really aggressively in their lanes and pushing up. And Ryu is #1 for a lot of the group stages. And like he's just playing so aggressively, and he's pulling it off very well because he has pressure in the other side lanes as well. And like they use jungle pressure to gain that extra vision so he can play that way. But against Crown, who has pulled off multiple solo kills, I'm not sure if he'll be able to pull off the same sort of feats.
Yeah, that's actually a super good point because every team HK has played has had a weak link somewhere in laning phase. Like when they play against EDG, it was in the top lane. When they play against ANX, it was again in the top lane where like Odamna had a big advantage. Samsung, every member like H2K has been playing better, so that means I don't see a lane where I'm like, top lane for sure is H2K, mid lane, bot lane. No, I actually think a lot of lanes are super, super even, so that would be the biggest test for sure for H2K. They don't have a clear lane to snowball off.
Yeah, and as you guys said, or as you just mentioned, Samsung also has just grown immensely from the regular season to their regional to their group stage, and now as one of the big favorites for the rest. So, quick prediction then. You said 70-30 in favor of Samsung, so how many games are we going to see, guys?
I'm going to say 3-2 to Samsung.
Yeah, 5 games.
5 games.
Yeah, 5 games.
We get our first 5 games, silver scrapes and everything.
Yeah.
Samsung will get in the end.
I'm gonna have to say 3-1. I really want to
hater again, always.
But I think that Samsung will take it 3-1. The biggest one to me is just I feel so much more confident with Samsung's late game. Even though H2K have looked much better, they've been smashing so hard that it hasn't quite answered that question for me if they can. But I will be pleasantly surprised if they do patch it up around the Baron. The one that was stolen today, I was like, okay, not quite sold.
It's always a Syndra too. We'll see Saturday. That is when H2K and Samsung are playing. On Friday though, SKT going up against the ROX Tigers. As you said, now it is definitely even and not an underdog story for the ROX Tigers. So quick prediction and explanation.
ROX Tigers will win. And they will win because Smeb and Peanut will outplay Duke and Blank and actually completely win the top side. Koro will just sit on either a roaming pick or like a wave clear pick and try and just go even versus Faker. And I think bot lane is very evenly matched. So I'm going to give the advantage to ROX. That way it can go completely wrong and Peanut plays like garbage and then it doesn't matter.
No, don't backtrack.
But no, I'm just saying.
Throw it all in.
So I'm going to say, I'm actually going to...
see.
Give me another 3-2. 3-2 to ROX.
Go.
Oh, man. I mean, so the reason you gave is sound, and that's the reasoning that I've heard multiple times in the past. And the flaw in it that I found is the part about Kuro's just going to be fine. He's going to play wave clear in the mid lane. There's something about him versus Faker, and I don't like Faker just never lets that happen. Even though I love Kuro and like he's so strong against so many other mid laners, and he can do that against anybody else. I have to go with the Faker factor, and I'm going to take SKT. I will also say 3-2, though, because I will also be a wussy.
Yeah, so we have 9 or 10 games coming to us in New York, so I think that's something to look forward to. That will wrap it up. A big shout out to the Chicago Theater and everyone that attended here. It's been an amazing experience, but it is time for us to pack up and head over to the Big Apple to Madison Square Garden in New York, where we'll be back on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. That is 3 p.m. Pacific for SKT versus ROX. Thank you very much, and see you then.
Damage is almost enough without Forgiven's turn to turn it around. They're looking for Ryu, but they can't get it. Miracle gonna get his face screwed off. Is not careful. Ryu gets himself a triple. There's the Quadra. Stales just goes down 0-1. They know on a killing spree. Nafine 2. Well, it doesn't connect to the crit. He goes in again. It's a great pull, but it's just not enough. Forgiven takes out Smurf. There's the ace for H2K. H2K demolish ANX for their semi-final match versus Samsung Galaxy.